The mining camp reeked of ozone and despair. Kael Vera's calloused hands trembled as he hauled another chunk of irradiated quartz into the Vorax processing bin. The exoskeletal drone hovering above him chirped a mechanical warning, its barbed tail twitching. He kept his eyes down, like he'd done for 10 years. Survive. For Lyra. His daughter worked 3 rows over, her small frame swallowed by a grime-stained hazard suit 2 sizes too big. She shouldn't have been here. None of the children should. But the Vorax didn't care about age, only utility. A sudden screech of metal echoed through the quarry. Kael turned, his heart seizing. 2 overseers, towering, chitinous horrors with too many joints, stalked toward Lyra's station. Their clicking mandibles spat Voraxian, a language that sounded like bones breaking. Human juvenile. Designation, Lyra Vera. Ascension protocol initiated. Lyra froze. The camp fell silent. No, Kael whispered. He'd heard the stories. The Ascended never came back. They were hollowed out, repurposed. Dad. Lyra screamed as a drone clamped its pincers around her arm. Kael moved before he could think. He lunged for the nearest tool cart, grabbed a plasma cutter, and swung. The blade seared through the drone's thorax in a burst of sparks. It crumpled, but not before its tail lashed out, gashing his temple. Blood blurred his vision. He reached for Lyra, but a second drone slammed him into the ground. The last thing he saw was her tear-streaked face, her mouth forming a silent plea. Dada. Pain was a fire in Kael's skull. He woke face down in the sludge of the trash pits, his body half buried under rusted metal and rotting food waste. The Vorax didn't bother killing disobedient slaves. Why waste ammunition when the pits would do it for them? Radiation, scavengers, infection. Most didn't last a night. Lyra. Her name was a knife twisting in his gut. He tried to stand, but his legs buckled. The gash on his temple throbbed, sticky with blood and filth. He pressed a shaking hand to it, his fingers coming away black in the dim moonlight. Survive. Find her. A skittering noise made him freeze. Something moved in the shadows, a rat the size of a dog, its eyes glowing faintly green from bio-waste mutations. It hissed, baring needle teeth. Kael groped for a weapon, his fingers closing around a broken pipe. Before he could swing, a plasma shot seared past his ear. The rat exploded in a burst of charred meat. You're lucky I don't eat the dead, a woman's voice drawled. Kael turned, squinting. A figure crouched on a collapsed walkway above him, silhouetted against the haze of the ruined city. She leapt down, landing with a quiet thud. Up close, she was all sharp edges, cropped dark hair, a cybernetic left arm whirring softly as it adjusted the plasma pistol's charge. Jin, she said, holstering the gun. And you're the idiot who attacked a Vorax drone with a mining tool. Kael coughed, spitting blood. Did it work? Jin smirked. No, but I like the spirit. She tossed him a canteen. Drink. You look like hell. The water was stale, metallic, but it washed the taste of blood from his mouth. They took my daughter, he rasped. Jin's smirk faded. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Then you're coming with me. Jin led him through the ruins, sticking to the husks of collapsed buildings and the maze of old sewer tunnels. The Vorax didn't patrol these areas, too unstable, too beneath them. Where are we going? Kael asked, his breath ragged. Somewhere they won't find us. She kicked aside a rusted door, revealing a hidden stairwell. The air smelled of damp concrete and burnt wiring. The tunnel opened into a cavernous space, an old subway station, its walls covered in faded graffiti and hand-drawn maps. Dozens of faces turned toward them, gaunt but alert. A child no older than Lyra sat cross-legged near a flickering fire barrel, twisting scrap metal into makeshift toys. A man with a scarred face stepped forward. Jin, who's this? Kael Vera, Jin said, former engineer, and very motivated. The man, Rhett, their de facto leader, frowned. We don't need another suicide case. Kael's hands clenched. I need to get my daughter back. From the Ascension Labs? Rhett laughed bitterly. Nobody comes back from there. Jin cut in. He fought a drone barehanded. That's the kind of stupid we need. Rhett exhaled, rubbing his temples. Fine. But if he gets us killed, I'm haunting you, Jin. Jin took Kael deeper into the tunnels, past makeshift sleeping quarters and weapon caches. She stopped at a rusted maintenance door, typing a code into a jury-rigged keypad. Inside, a single terminal hummed, its screen cracked but active. A fragmented hologram flickered above it, a human face, distorted by static. Elysium Project, Adaptive Defense Protocol scrolled across the display. Kael's breath caught. That's impossible. Jin crossed her arms. You recognize it? I helped build it, he whispered. Elysium was supposed to be humanity's last shield, an AI that could learn, adapt, outthink any threat. But the Vorax pulse killed it before it could activate. Or so they thought. The hologram glitched, a voice stuttering through the speakers. User, recognized. Kael. Vera. Access, granted. Jin's eyes gleamed. Think you can wake it up? Kael stared at the screen, his pulse roaring. Yes. The service tunnel stank of coolant and rot. Kael crawled behind Jin, the walls vibrating as the fusion core cycled overhead. Here, Jin whispered, jamming a magnetic charge into a rusted hatch. This drops into the main coolant line. Follow it north it. The explosion was muffled but close. Rhett's voice crackled over their comms. Contact. They knew we were coming. Plasma fire screamed through the tunnel. Jin shoved Kael aside as a blast seared the wall where his head had been. Move, she barked. They ran, boots slipping on grime, the roar of drones closing in. Kael's lungs burned. Betrayal. Someone talked. The coolant line spat them into a cavernous chamber. The fusion core loomed above, a sphere of writhing energy caged in Vorax biometal. Dozens of drones patrolled the catwalks. Jin cursed. No way through. Kael gripped the data pad. There's a maintenance shaft, hidden behind the... A shadow moved. Mira stepped into the light, her plasma pistol leveled at them. Sorry, she said, her voice flat. They promised to bring my brother back. Jin snarled, you traitorous. Mira fired. Kael tackled Jin behind a console as the shot grazed her shoulder. Go, she hissed, shoving him toward the shaft. I'll handle her. He ran. The core's control terminal was a nest of Vorax tech, organic cables snaking into glowing ports. Kael jammed Elysium's drive into the interface. Initializing integration, the AI chimed. Warning, hive mind countermeasures detected. Override them. The terminal screens erupted with Voraxian symbols, sharp and jagged. Kael's vision blurred as Elysium flooded his mind with data, the hive mind structure, vast and cold, a million voices chanting in unison. Assimilate. Optimize. Consume. They are harvesting resilience, Elysium said. Your daughter is a test subject. They seek to replicate humanity's flaw star dot. Flaw. The inability to surrender. Kael's hand shook as he typed. Can you shut it down? Negative. The hive mind is decentralized. But I can, distracted. The core's light flared. Alarms wailed. Jin cornered Mira near a coolant tank, blood dripping from her wound. Why? Myra's eyes were hollow. They showed me his face. My brother's voice. They can rebuild the dead, Jin. Don't you want that? Don't you want your girl back? Jin faltered. Mira lunged. The fight was brutal, a tangle of fists and plasma burns. Jin pinned her, the tank's edge digging into Myra's throat. They lied, Jin hissed. The Ascended aren't people. They're puppets. Mira laughed, raw and broken. So are we. Jin let her fall, but not before snatching the detonator from her belt. The core destabilized, energy arcing wildly. Kael clung to the terminal as the hive mind's voice screeched in his skull. Human. Cease. You are flawed. Illogical. Damn right, he growled. Elysium's presence surged, flooding the hive with fragments of human history, wars, inventions, a child's laughter. The Vorax collective recoiled, its order shattered by the storm of feeling. The core exploded. Kael was thrown back, the world a blur of light and noise. Hands dragged him, Jin, her face bloodied but alive. Lyra, he choked. Ascension Lab, Elysium whispered through his calm hurry. The Vorax hive mind was screaming. Kael stumbled through the terraformers' collapsing corridors, the walls shuddering as Elysium's viral code ravaged the hive's neural networks. Behind him, Vorax drones twitched and spasmed, their exoskeletons sparking. One clawed at its own thorax, shrieking in a voice that was almost human. The collective is destabilizing, Elysium said through Kael's calm, but the Ascension Lab is sealing itself. You have 6 minutes. Jin limped beside him, her cybernetic arm spitting static. They're panicking. Never seen him panic before. They don't know how to handle chaos, Kael said, ducking as a ceiling beam crashed down. Elysium's flooding their logic with us. The Ascension Chamber was a nightmare of flesh and machine. Dozens of humans hung suspended in biometal cocoons, their skulls pierced by Vorax neural filaments. At the room's center, Lyra floated inside a translucent pod, her eyes open but unseeing. Dad. The voice wasn't hers. It came from everywhere, the walls, the cocoons, the hive itself. Lyra. Kael slammed his fist against the pod. I'm here. The pod hissed open. Lyra collapsed into his arms, her skin feverish, veins glowing with Vorax biotech. She is ours now, the hive mind intoned, its voice splintered. We have taken her resilience. Her flaw. Flaw. Kael snarled. You mean her life? Lyra's eyelids fluttered. There, inside me. But I'm still here. I held on. Like you taught me. Jin stiffened. Kael, look. The cocoons were splitting open. The Ascended staggered out, their eyes Vorax green, mouths twisted in unison. We are perfected, they droned. We are collective. Elysium's hologram flickered above Kael's datapad. The hive is using her as an anchor. If she dies, their link to humanity dies with her. If she lives, she becomes their weapon, Jin finished. Kael gripped Lyra tighter. No, there's another way. The hive cannot process human emotional bonds, Elysium said. But to exploit that, you would need to merge with it. Let it consume your mind. Jin stared at him. You'll die. Or drive it insane. Kael pressed his forehead to Lyra's. I have to try. Lyra's hand trembled as she touched his cheek. Don't leave me. Never, he whispered. Kael jacked a Vorax neural cable into his spine before Jin could stop him. Agony. The hive mind was a hurricane of cold logic, vast and hungry. It tore into him, dissecting his memories like lab specimens. Lyra's birth. His wife's laugh. The day the Vorax came. Weakness. The collective sneered. These are not strength. You're wrong. Kael gritted his teeth, pushing deeper. First steps. Bedtime stories. Her tears when she skinned her knee. The hive recoiled. Chaos. Inefficient. Life, Kael roared. He unleashed everything, the smell of rain, the ache of grief, the stubborn joy of a birthday song hummed in the dark. The hive mind fractured, its order collapsing under the weight of feeling. Error. Error. Terminate L. The ascended humans froze. Then, one by one, they began to laugh. Lyra's glow faded. The Vorax tech in her veins crumbled to dust. Dad? Her voice was hers again. Kael yanked the cable free, his nose bleeding, vision blurring. I'm here. The lab shook. Jin hauled them both up. We gotta go. Now. Behind them, the hive mind's final transmission echoed through the ruins. The first true sunrise in a decade painted the ruins in gold. Kael stood at the edge of the shattered highway, watching as survivors trickled out of the tunnels. They moved like ghosts, squinting at the light, their hands brushing the skeletal trees that lined the dead riverbed as if to confirm the world was still real. A child, the same one who'd twisted scrap metal into toys underground, darted past him, laughing as she chased a moth with iridescent wings. Mutated, maybe. Beautiful anyway. Behind him, Jin tightened the bandage on her cybernetic arm, the joints still sparking. Elysium's already got them stripping Vorax Rex for parts. Rhett's building a damn antenna out of drone hulls. Says we're broadcasting on all frequencies. To who? Kael asked. Anyone listening. She nodded to Lyra, who crouched in the dust nearby, prying a Vorax data core from the rubble. The biotech in her veins had left faint silver scars, like constellations on her skin. How's the kid? Alive. The word caught in his throat. She's alive. Jin's gaze softened. Mira didn't make it. The coolant tank blew before she could get clear. Kael said nothing. The wind carried the smell of ozone and something else. Rain, maybe, though the clouds were thin. We're setting up a med station in the old subway, Jin said finally. You should bring Lyra. Get her checked. She hates the dark now. Yeah, me too. Lyra found him later atop the overpass, her pockets bulging with Vorax circuitry. Look. She spilled her haul onto the cracked asphalt, a dozen thumb-sized fusion cells, still glowing. They're batteries, right? Elysium says we can use them to power the water pumps. Kael raised an eyebrow. Since when do you take orders from an AI? Since it taught me how to hotwire a Vorax shuttle. She sat beside him, her legs dangling over the edge. Below, a group of survivors hauled a drone's severed leg like a trophy, its razor-clawed foot repurposed as a plow. They're calling it the garden. Stupid name. Your mom would have liked it. Lyra leaned into him. She'd have planted sunflowers. A silence settled, comfortable and aching. In the distance, the husk of the Sigma, 9 terraformer groaned as Ember's engineers dismantled it, beam by beam. Elysium's different now, Lyra said quietly. It asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. What did you say? Astronaut. Like you. Kael's chest tightened. The Vorax blew up the launch pads, Lyra. So we'll build new ones. She said it like a fact, simple as the sunrise. Elysium says the stars are still there. That we'll need them, someday. That night, Rhett's antenna crackled to life. The survivors gathered around the fire barrel, their faces lit by holograms as Elysium cycled through frequencies. Static gave way to voices, not Vorax, but human. Any survivors in the quarantine zone, this is New Carthage Colony. Repeat, we are receiving your signal. The group erupted in cheers. A woman wept into her hands. Rhett hooped, lifting the scrap metal child onto his shoulders. Kael stared at the stars. They'd survived. They'd been hurt. Lyra squeezed his hand. Told you. The Vorax probe hovered silently above the garden, its cameras documenting it all. A girl watering a seedling with a canteen. A medic laughing as she reattached a boy's prosthetic leg. A former slave welding a Vorax skull to a flagpole, the banner beneath reading, Welcome, suckers. When the footage reached the Vorax homeworld, the Empress convened her High Synod. Analysis, she demanded, her voice a chorus of 1,000 drones. The science mind stepped forward, its carapace flickering with unease. The humans persist. Worse, they prosper. Their resilience is not a resource. It is a contagion. Contagion? Observe. The science mind replayed the probe's final clip, Kael and Lyra on the overpass, passing a canteen back and forth. The girl giggled as water sloshed down her shirt. This, emotion, it disrupts order. We have no defense. The Synod shuddered. Then erase their coordinates, the Empress commanded. Let the galaxy believe them extinct. Let their flaw die with them. Months later, on the eve of the first harvest, Lyra found her father in the garden. He stood at a makeshift memorial, a wall of names etched into salvaged Vorax plating. Her mother's was at the top. They're telling the story again, Lyra said. The one about you and the hive mind. Myra's in it now. They say she. I don't know. Shaped the explosion into a flower. Kael snorted. She'd have hated that. Yeah. Lyra scuffed her boot in the dirt. But it's a good lie. They walked back to camp in silence, the path lit by bioluminescent fungi cultivated from Vorax biowaste. Above them, Elysium's restored satellites glittered. Will you teach me? Lyra asked suddenly. Teach you what? Everything. Engines. Code. How to remember. Kael stopped, studying her face, the resolve in it, the unbroken light. All right. As they disappeared into the glow of the campfires, the wind carried a new sound, the crackle of Rhett's antenna, broadcasting a message Elysium had insisted they send on loop. It wasn't a distress call. It was a song,